Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Cheney, and my topic today is on school consolidation. Welcome to my library. With the passing of Public Education Reorganization, or Act 60, in 2003, the law became that if a school has less than 350 students, average daily membership, or ADM, then that school needed to consolidate with a nearby district. Now, you had an option within Act 60. You can come up with a plan, and if there are several schools in your area, as there are in rural districts that all have under 350 ADM, you could come together to form a consolidated district. Or a smaller school, especially those in a rural area, might have a larger school nearby that they could join so that the combined membership would be over 350 ADM. Or you could just sit around and wait and let the state do it for you. And sometimes people could not come up with a decision, and that indecision led to the State Board of Education making a decision. Of course, any plans that school districts might make under option 1 of coming up with their own plan to form a consolidated district still had to go through the state board and be approved. So districts began looking around trying to figure out your 350 ADM had to be for 2 years in a row. And so many school districts would heavily recruit and then have a year where their ADM was higher than 350. And then the clock restarted. So then the next year, attendance might dwindle, it dwindles. Now they're back down to under 350. They go into extreme measures again to recruit students and get that ADM back up above 350, constantly restarting the clock. But by doing that, normally you did have some financial problems that would arise from recruiting, and just because a student came didn't mean that they would be there and be counted all 4 quarters. And so your ADM could end up by the end of the year falling, and then you've got the problem of having 2 years in a row. So some schools came up with some kind of cool ideas and ways to get around the ADM of 350. They began to find the loopholes that were in the Act 60. And one of the loopholes was creating a school that provided something that nearby schools didn't provide. And so one school that I worked closely with for several years came up with an idea of creating a magnet school. So they created a math and science magnet school. And I actually worked with this school for 1 year as pen pals. My high school students were pen pals with their elementary students. And we brought in all kinds of science stuff at the end of the year. They also partnered with a local technical school, and they partnered with a nearby college. And experts from the field actually came to the school and did programs and had an ongoing relationship with the school so that it became this math and science magnet. And it did kind of recruit some students. That idea brought in some students, plus the fact that it was providing a service that no other school for hundreds of miles was providing, the fact that it was giving this intense math and science education. Because of this, and of course, because of the intensive reading that the students did, this school actually did score 100% of their students at proficient or advanced for 3 years in a row. And in fact, the State Department actually came up and set through the testing that this school provided 1 year because they thought the school was cheating. And they actually, the next year, they dropped down to like 95 or 96%. Eventually, this school did have to go ahead and consolidate, though. Another measure that a school might do is just to go ahead and voluntarily consolidate with a school nearby. Again, I come from a very rural area, so I know a lot of schools that were in these positions. And a school that I grew up knowing lots of people at did this. The 2 schools did combine. It was wonderful experience for both schools. They included parents, they included community members in the consolidation efforts, and they had students also be part of it. And I thought the students had a wonderful idea that they had just purchased new basketball uniforms, because in a small school, sports are where everything is on Friday nights and Tuesday nights. I mean, everybody in the community is in the gym watching the game. So one school had just bought new uniforms, and the students themselves said, doesn't make sense to spend money to buy new uniforms. The uniforms didn't have the name of the school, and they didn't have the name of the mascot on there. And so they took the school colors from one school and took the mascot from the other school whenever they combined, so that students felt like they had a little piece of the school. And that consolidation worked out pretty well, that voluntarily consolidating of the districts. Recruitment is one way. I heard of one school in Nebraska during doing my research that actually worked with the entire community to form an international school, and they had many members in the community that went through training to become host families for students that were the study abroad program. And so then you had this international school with students from all over the world. The school planned extra activities for them to do. All the students got to be in whatever club they wanted to, membership fee free, and host families were able to pay for those students to go on trips with different clubs. And so the students still got the opportunity, even though it was a rural community in Nebraska, the international students still got an opportunity to travel all over the United States and see things. But then they got the experience of also being around lots of other exchange students. And so it was a very rich learning community that they did. You can also invoke isolated status. That's one way around the ADM 350. Newton County in Arkansas has 10 people per square mile. I've driven through Newton County on numerous occasions. There are miles and miles and miles that you drive that there are no roads that turn off the highway. So not only do you not see a house, you don't see a water tower, you don't see electric lines, there are no roads turning off the main road, which tells you that there are not a lot of people in that area. So when you come up on a very small town and they have this tiny little school, you wonder, how do they even have enough students to fill the school? But then look at the geography around that area. Newton County in north central Arkansas, in the heart of the Ozark Mountains, the school, a small school there that has about 197 students, K-12, is totally isolated. In the wintertime, if you consolidated that school with any school nearby, those students would miss the majority of the winter months because they could not get over the mountain to get to the nearest school to them, which is only about 20 miles away. And you're like, oh, well, it's only 20 miles. But you've got some students in this district that are already riding the bus for 40 to 45 minutes, which is one of the guidelines that Act 60 put into place a little bit later, that if a student has to ride a bus for 45 minutes or longer, that's a way to claim isolated status. You can have 100 square miles of bus route using the most efficient way to get from the school to the student's house and back, or you can be geographically isolated by being surrounded by mountains or being in an area where there's not a bridge across the river that's a reliable bridge or that could sustain the weight of a bus consistently. Or you could have an area that students have to be on a bus for 45 minutes or longer. So all of those could be ways around Act 60. But let's think of, if we aren't going to work our way around Act 60, our school possibly is in danger of consolidation, which there are 21 school districts in the state right now that are at risk of having to consolidate within the next 5 years. So let's think, what could they do? Well, some popular policy options, other than the ones that I've already mentioned that have been used, and some that have worked quite well, is that you can have a shorter work week. And this is kind of a new area. It's getting a lot of research right now to see if it works. There has been a lot of negative research about a 4-day work week, longer days, but only 4 days. One of the main things, though, about consolidation is we're going to consolidate these districts. We're going to be able to save a lot of money. And rarely do you get to see that savings of money. You end up with districts that maybe even spend more. For instance, Madison Ridgeland in Mississippi, who has consolidated, actually are spending about $7 million more now that they've consolidated than the two districts did when they were separate. One of my really good friends is the new superintendent for Madison Ridgeland. That's one of the things that she's looking at is cutting back so that they are going to see some financial savings, because so far there haven't been any financial savings. So, excuse me. So some benefits of going ahead and having a 4-day work week would be that students and teachers would have a little while longer to rest. I mean, we all know the stresses that teachers and students go through with the amount of work that has to get done, the amount of activities that students are involved in. So you would have some increased time to recuperate from that and to actually do some projects that have some depth in them instead of just projects that can be completed in the limited amount of time that students have available in the afternoons or evenings. You could also, research has shown that there's reduced discipline referrals because students do have that time away from school. They do have that time away from people that maybe are causing them to have some discipline referrals. If you look at data, discipline referrals are higher on Friday because by the end of the week, students have had enough. They have a short fuse. Teachers have had enough. They have a short fuse. So if you have a 4-day week, discipline referrals have been shown to go down because even though you're at school longer each day, you do have a 3-day weekend to look forward to all the time. There have been improved attendance rates because students do know that it's only 4 days. It's only 4 days that I have to be at school this week. I've got a 3-day weekend to build back up. And so so far, research now, there is a hypothesis that eventually whenever a 4-day work week does become the norm, that all of these positives will slide right back down. And we know that at first you have that novelty effect that takes place in whenever something new is put into place, and then eventually you fall right back down. So that's something to look into to see. That's further research that can be done. There is a reduction of cost with this, with a 4-day work week, because you are only heating and cooling the buildings for 4 days. You are running transportation for 4 days. So there is a slight reduction in cost with that. Some disadvantages, though, is that parents have to find childcare for that 4th day if they don't have the ability to run a 4-day week themselves. Employees that run an hourly wage will not get overtime for the 40-hour work week working 10-hour days. So that is a longer day each time, and there is no expectation of overtime or an increased salary because of that. Again, the research is not fully conclusive yet because this is it's an innovative idea. It's something that definitely bears further research. And students, we have a lot of students here in Arkansas that are food insecure. And so if you have a 4-day work week and the students aren't coming to school on that day, that's a day more that you either have to send the backpack home with, an extra day of food, or students are going to be hungry because they aren't at school to be fed. Another way that you can do this is if you offer maybe digital courses. According to the new law by the governor, and it is 6/16/1406, that in order to graduate from a high school here in Arkansas, you have to take at least one digital online course before you can graduate, and that started in 2017 with the 9th graders in 2017. So that means everybody from now on is going to have to take that. And excuse me. So that means let's offer some digital courses. Let's offer those higher level digital courses that a lot of times schools with an ADM that's nearing that 350 line, they're losing students because they can't offer those higher level courses that that students want. And so students leave to go to a school that can offer AP courses or can offer advanced math. That's maybe not an AP math, but an advanced math. But those classes are also available digitally. So you could almost be, killing two birds with one stone here to offer that digital course that you could pull students in or keep your students there. So that's something to look at. Another positive is that many of the digital courses here in Arkansas are free. All you'll need is a paraprofessional to monitor the students while they are there taking part in that online course that is delivered digitally. And online courses are consistently reviewed, and the teachers are highly trained in being able to use online courses and technology to deliver instruction to make the courses as engaging as possible. My sister is currently teaching in an online school, and she has great back and forth with her students and knows all of her students and knows their background, and says it's very much like being in your own classroom, knowing your students, except that you're just sitting in front of a computer and you're seeing them in front of their computer. A drawback is that some of the rural schools that are in danger of consolidation do have problems with Wi-Fi. It's just one of those things that the schools, they don't have the facilities that some schools may have. And so you may be fighting an uphill battle to get enough broadband width and to get a reliable Wi-Fi connection. And students don't have Wi-Fi at home, so any kind of interchange they want to have with their teacher digitally at home, they wouldn't be able to get. And then students may have a little issue with this online and may feel like they can't contact that online instructor. So it is going to have to take the school talking with these students and being able to share with them that, yeah, that's what these teachers are here for. They're here for you. They're here for you to contact them. A third recommendation would be to go ahead and look at consolidation. Make your plan now for consolidation, and make your plan so that you are not doubling the number of administrators in central office. A lot of times, any cost savings that you may anticipate from having whenever schools are consolidated are eaten up because more and more administrators are hired in central office with the idea of a bigger district takes more people to run it. And in actuality, now you are not doubling the work of people, requiring extra people. You are actually doing the same amount of paperwork because you're collecting the same amount of data. So you don't have to have double the number of people. And so there needs to be a plan in place several years in advance that if we have to consolidate with this school, then after consolidation, this would be the administrative setup, and allow people to know that at the offset so that you could have people that could plan for retirement or could plan to find jobs in other locations if consolidation becomes imminent. My recommendation would be here to implement distance learning. To me, it just seems the most prudent because you already have to offer a digital course. Students are already going to have to take a digital course in order to graduate here in the state of Arkansas. So why don't we just go ahead and offer those digital courses so that towns that are experiencing, school districts that are experiencing a decrease of students who are leaving the schools, looking for courses that are higher level, that can't be offered by the school because the enrollment just doesn't justify hiring another teacher to teach an advanced trigonometry class that only has 1 or 2 students. Let's go ahead and find those online courses now, implement those online courses, and keep students from leaving the school so that our ADM can stay above 350. Thanks.